Men are fed up, dude. Men are confused and they're also fed up. People are fucking pissed off, man. So if you listen to the men, I listen to the men, I know exactly what they got to say. And I also listen to the women, I also understand what they have to say. Everybody's annoyed. Everybody's pissed off. Nobody can, it doesn't work. That's the reality. Talk to women. So the men are going to say, the women are saying this and that, and they come up with their excuses. Yeah, but you should listen to what they have to also say, but you're not able to because you take it personally. Okay? So I'll be the intermediary for the sake of conversation for the next 6 minutes, right? What they're saying, I know exactly what they're saying. And I also know exactly what they're saying. Just take a macro zoom out. Here's what you understand. There's a fucking issue. That's it. Don't take a side for 2 minutes. There's an issue. Men and women are incapable of relating. Do you understand what the hell I'm saying? Like, do you understand how screwed up that is? Men and women, this is the foundation, the foundational units of the human experience. It's like the cells of a body. It's even more fundamental. Cannot relate with statistics to back up what I'm saying from my homeboy that I told you about in the first series of videos. Like, I swear to God, that's my dude. He's a super geek. He comes up with the stats. If that dude says these stats, this is a super geek and is very proud of his papers and his. We already know that, but this is the stats. I'm like, this is fucked up. This is so fucked up. It's like you can't even wrap your mind around it. When you listen to it, you're like, kind of like, it doesn't even make any sense. Men and women cannot relate. Do I need to say more than that? So now we have men on their side who are upset. Some of them are realizing that you cannot relate with women. Am I going to say that they're wrong? I'm like, no. I look at let's say I'm 25 years old, right? Conditioned by Americana, like your average dude. Where am I going to go meet girls? You go online. This is where you see online is the new cafeteria. Nothing's new under the sun. It's just expanded. So when I was in high school, it's a little different because I went to private school, but there's the cool people and there's this and there's this, right? Now, let's say it's a supreme American high school online. Everything is extremely exaggerated. Imagine, like this is women. Like the future mother of my child is so self-centered and narcissistic, and I don't want to say this in a disrespectful way, okay? All she's doing is taking pictures of herself from angles, her nose, her lips, her thighs, this is what it is. And now look at on the other side, the guys. Either they're like so repressive and geeky and just like bitter, or they're like exaggerated, like I'm like, again, pictures everywhere and me, and I'm me. I'm like, this is what we have. This is it. This is the world we live in. Of course, if you're so self-centered and she's so self-centered, how can two self-centered people ever be in relation? I don't even want to talk about it from that angle. I took it. I'm closing that parentheses. I'm trying to tell you, men and women, the foundational unit of the human experience, do not relate. Men are upset. And on the other side, women are annoyed. They're like, look at you. You're like a little kid. Of course, they'll respond. Everybody responds. So nobody's listening. Nobody's having a conversation. Nobody's able to listen. I'm not expecting anybody to listen. But this is just to show you, nobody's able to listen. Everybody's triggered. All the time. Which shows to which extent they're in pain. Why nobody talk about the pain? I'm part of men's groups online. I'm just there, right? I'm not paying. I know of them, right? It's all day, every day. This woman did this girl did this one said this one said this one did this did. All day. I'm like, well, isn't that exactly what a person who's heartbroken does? Why don't you come to terms? Why don't you acknowledge that you're heartbroken? That's not manly. That's like, that would be a beta male who's heartbroken. I'm like, you're clearly heartbroken. You may not know what you're heartbroken of. Maybe it's your past story, but I'm talking about at a deeper level from a man's. Well, of course you're broken hearted. Look at her. Look at her. The queen of the night reduced to a little doll and a bubble butt. Well, you should be heartbroken. This is heartbroken. This is heart. This breaks the heart. Like, what's going on? And let's look at it on the other side. Let's say you're a woman and you're looking at these dudes. I'm like, you're supposed to solve the problems and you don't know what the fucking problem is. And for the most part, you're like totally broken. You've lost all sense of direction. You don't know who you are. You don't know where we're going. You don't know why you're here. And that's a big percentage of the group. Then there's the other ones who are so full of themselves, yet do not realize that they don't know who they are, where they're going, and are chasing after material things. Essentially, it's an animal trying to grow in power in the zoo. And the woman says, you think you can provide to me the stability I need when you're a slave here? You don't have access to actual power? Sure, you have money. Sure, you have a nice car. Sure, maybe your body is good looking. Yeah, that's great. She'll use you for that. Obviously, this is exactly what she's doing. I'll use you for that. Why not? Do you think that an upper echelon slave can satisfy a woman? Or satisfy me? This is what she doesn't say that consciously. She's unconscious. The womb is saying that. She doesn't know. She's lost. So you want to argue and fight. This one says, I'm like, no, I'm highlighting that there's an issue. This is a core issue. Clearly both are having a problem. Men are very sensitive of the heart. They're heartbroken. Women they don't know what's going on, but they become hysterical. And nobody wants to speak about the fact that everybody's in pain. Because nobody wants to address the real issue, which is deep. It's fundamental, and it takes us at the genesis of life. And nobody wants to address that because, number one, God is dead. And when I'm talking about the genesis of life, I'm not talking about your Jehovah or any other version of names of God. I'm talking about an actual understanding of how life operates. But God is dead. Anything that's not material is dead. The end all of be all in our modern life is a form of hedonistic, superficial pleasure. And everybody's so scarce in energy and so desperate, and everybody feeds off of each other like vultures. So one time I was in South Africa. I got myself in the wrong part of where I should not be. Right? You're like a piece of meat. Everybody's poor, everybody's broke, and nobody has nothing, and nobody ever gets out of that place. And comes a stupid white dude with looking at everybody with a big smile because he's confused. With fancy shoes, fancy this, fancy that. Guess what happened? So everybody's desperate. That's what I'm trying to say. So they're desperate. These people I was talking about in South Africa, rightfully so. They're stuck. So we're now talking about the man is desperate and the woman is desperate, and we put two people who are desperate and two people who are broke together. And when I say that, people don't necessarily understand or they get offended no, because it's a deep subject, and your average person doesn't want to deal with deep because it opens a can of whoop ass. It opens a can of worm. It opens a can of like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, yeah, we have a great problem. It goes far back. And if you don't want to talk about the Genesis, we don't have to. I don't have a problem with that. Let's look at your ancestors and go as far back as you can. You know what they were? Slaves. Go back 100 years, 200 years, 500 years, 700 years, 800 years. Who ruled the world? Oligarchs. They had different names, which meant that your parents and ancestors were what? Subjects. Which meant, in other words, they were slaves, just depending on how it was organized. So that's the reality. Let's go back another 1,000 years, 2,000 years. Let's just for fun go back as far as you'd like. What would history point to? They try to change the narrative and make it according to whatever they want to make it. Don't just use if somebody owns everything, just like today, who owns everything? A handful of people. What does that make of you? A bitch. You could just see it. There's no arguing. Now, you may be smart enough and can gather yourself a little bit of resource and live like a richer slave. Fine. At the end of the day, you're still a slave. You just better off, or you're like Robin Hood and you live on the side. Respect. Honest to God. What I'm trying to say is, like, you don't have to go back to Genesis to understand that there's a fundamental problem. I'm trying to tell you something. Look at history a couple of 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, 8,000 years ago. Well, what's going on? It's the same thing is going on over and over and over and over again. It just changes forms according to the era. Which means what? There's a bunch of people who got the power and the rest of us. And those who have the power, even though they may be kind to you, that means you're the slave. If you don't like the word, we call it a subject, which means what? Exactly what I'm saying. There's a fundamental problem at the level of the basic level of the human experience, and the human beings have lost their power. And in order to make a human being lose their power, you need to separate man from woman. I'm always going to get back to this because it's the foundation. And people don't like the foundation because it's too simple. They like to stay at the surface and complicate themselves with molecules that don't exist and be geeky shit like motherfuckers. But when we come down to the foundation, people get nervous because it takes you deep and it's simple. And it's not really negotiable. What's there to negotiate about? Hell, it says so in the Bible. So this is deep stuff, and then the person, if somebody's listening, they listen to it for a couple of minutes, and then it's like life goes on. Now I have to go make some money, and then I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. You push that, and you go back to the top like a bubble, and there you are, and you just keep operating there. I got no problem with that. I'm just saying, the issue at hand is a deep problem. And in order to resolve that problem, if it is resolvable, one has to go deep. One has to have the courage to go into that darkness, has to have the heart to go into that darkness, to at least attempt to understand the issue or resolve the issue. If you want to operate here and you want to solve it at that level at the surface, I ain't got no problem. You're a medical doctor. I ain't a medical doctor. I don't give drugs to solve a problem. I go to the root cause of the issue because I'm a medicine man. This is my job. We solve the issue. We go to the root. If you don't have the capacity to go to the root, find yourself somebody who can and hang out with that person. And if you want nothing to do with the root, then you stay at the surface, palliate your pains. I respect that genuinely. It's not for me. And that will never solve the problem. You're palliating the pain. So that means what? It'll catch up to you. So what's the point? It's going to catch up to you. What's the point? You can't cheat nature. Society gives you the illusion that you can cheat nature. You can do this and you can do that. You can hack this, you can hack that. You can take this product and you can do that. And oops, the symptoms have gone. The symptoms that are there to tell you that something's disaligned. Well, I think it's pretty disaligned. Just look around. People don't like this kind of talk because it's deep and it's honest and it's true. And it points you straight back to what? You. Now, fuck this, man. And while I'm talking to you about this stuff, that doesn't change the fact that tomorrow you got to pay the bills that you got to pay, don't you? So the complexity is, the level of complexity in this day and age is it's amazing. It's great complexity. Because if you want to navigate through this and you got to figure it out for yourself, you still got to you got to still take care of your day-to-day operations. And eventually you got to find some kind of way that the pieces come together. So there's a form of supreme alignment, if we can call it like this. You know what I mean? It's complex. That's why I say it's not for everybody. If it's for you, good for you. If it's not for you, I'm sure that some of the things I'm saying is going to inspire you, touch you, and make you think. The point is, there's a fundamental issue at the heart of humanity, and it's the war, the unholy war between he and she. When you separate he and she, sexual power, the generative power is dissipated. That means humanity has lost its power. It's lost its way. Which means somebody else is going to impose their way. And somebody else is going to use that energy, that sexual generative power, for its own purpose. Isn't it obvious? So when a person tells me or wants to make me believe that we're going to have some kind of revolution of whatnot, I'm like, not until you actually fix the problem. And let's say that this group trumps that group. What do you think that group's going to do to the rest of yous? No, they're going to be like righteous, right? Get the fuck out of here. So, I'm concerned with myself, my situation, my well-being, the well-being of the people I care about and love, and the well-being of the people who want to associate themselves with me. And I'm interested in the new and in the future and where the world is going. And establish my regime, if I can call it like that, in the new world. And make it clear, the work that is done at the depth doesn't prevent me from living at the surface. Let that be clear. Alignment allows me to have access to every single strata, the surface also. And I never compromise, and I never disrespect myself, and I'm never living out of integrity. This is a secret that is hard for people to understand. Whereas surface folks, you don't know what the fuck is happening down below. You don't have access to it. You have no idea what's going down below. You're like living at the surface. You don't know how many fishes exist underneath the water of your little boat. So, choice is yours, how you want to live and what's your path.